They say the ones who hurt you most are the ones who call you family. For years, I believed that if I worked hard, stayed quiet, and never asked for much, I'd eventually be seen, maybe even loved the way my sister was. I was wrong. My name is Alyssa Carter, and the day I lost my house fund was the day I finally saw everyone for who they truly were. If stories like mine resonate with you, stories of quiet betrayal, broken trust, and soft-spoken strength, please subscribe to Reddit Family Tales. Leave a comment. Share your voice. You're not alone. I always believed I was the solid one, the dependable daughter, the quiet background figure who kept her head down and got things done. My parents used to call me our steady Alyssa. They said it like a compliment, but over time I learned it was more like a convenience. From a young age, I saw how differently they treated my younger sister, Madison. She was fire to my earth, loud, emotional, impulsive. I saved every tip, skipped every prom, every spring break, every splurge. After college, I didn't upgrade my car, didn't eat out unless there was a coupon, and I tracked every dollar in a spreadsheet that was more intimate to me than any journal. All for one dream: a home, not a mansion, just a place that was mine. A place where I could hang photos without asking, where no one would barge in and demand to know what I was doing or why I was being so quiet. By 29, I had finally saved enough $48 I can still feel the way my thumb trembled hovering over the send button, transferring the money into my parents' joint account. It was supposed to sit there for only 2 months while I closed the deal on a one-bedroom condo near Green Lake. They said it was safer there while I finalized paperwork, and I trusted them. I really, truly did. It wasn't even a week before things started to feel off. Mom dodged my calls. Dad mumbled when I asked about the bank. Then Madison showed up to a family dinner in a brand new white Audi, smiling like she had just walked off a commercial set. "That's a $50,000 car," I said, doing quick math. "Since when?" "Oh, don't be dramatic," Mom snapped, cutting her steak. Madison needed a vehicle. Her old one died and she's been stressed. My fork didn't move. My mind didn't either. Just one slow blink. "So you used my money." Madison shrugged. "I'll pay it back eventually." "Chill, Alyssa." Dad didn't even look up. "We're family. It's not a big deal." "Not a big deal." $48,000. Years of tip jars. Years of birthdays alone because I was picking up shifts. Years of being steady and just like that. Gone for a car. No apology, no shame, just casual betrayal. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on the couch in my one-bedroom rental, staring at the ceiling fan creaking above me like it was counting the seconds of my disbelief. I kept waiting for a text from my mother, a call from my father, even a half-hearted sorry from Madison. Nothing came. The next morning, I drove to my parents' house. Not because I wanted to fight, but because I needed to see if this was real. If my parents, the people I had trusted with everything I'd worked for, had really done this. Mom was in the kitchen, slicing bananas into her oatmeal like it was any other day. Dad was reading something on his tablet. "Where's the money?" I asked. My voice was barely above a whisper. Mom didn't look up. "It's in the car, Alyssa." "You've seen it?" Dad sighed. "Look, it's not like we went on vacation. Madison needed transportation. She has a job interview next week." I blinked, so did I. "A condo appointment." "My own place, you said it was safe in your account. You're overreacting." Mom said, placing her spoon down too carefully. "You always do this. Getting dramatic when something doesn't go your way." My way, for years I had done everything their way. Stayed local for college so I could help with Madison when she got suspended. Picked up groceries, helped with the mortgage during COVID. I even paid off a credit card that Madison secretly opened under Mom's name. And now, this. I didn't even get a phone call. I said quietly. Dad stood up. It was a family decision. Alyssa Madison was desperate. "You'll bounce back. You always do." That line, "You'll bounce back." It wasn't a compliment. It was a sentence, a stamp. It meant you're the one we can hurt because you won't scream. I was 2 weeks away from closing. I said, trying not to let my voice crack. And now I have nothing. Mom's face hardened. You have us. You have a roof over your head. That's more than a lot of people can say I left. I don't even remember grabbing my keys. My legs moved on autopilot while my heart tried to understand why pain could come from the people who kissed your forehead. Good night. That weekend, Madison posted a photo of her car on Instagram. Captioned, "She shines because she's loved." The comments poured in. Gorgeous, yes. Queen. You deserve it, girl. I didn't comment. I didn't like it, but I did stare at it for a long time, not at the car, but at her face. The way she beamed, the way betrayal seemed to suit her so effortlessly. Over the next month, my parents stopped mentioning the condo, stopped mentioning the money. When I brought it up again, gently, cautiously, they deflected. She said she'll pay it back. Mom muttered. You need to be patient. Dad added. But they never asked her to. They never once told her what she did was wrong. Instead, they kept inviting her to dinner, lending her their car when hers needed repairs, giving her space when she was too stressed to talk. And me, I was just there. I stopped visiting. I started working overtime. I got quieter on family group chats until no one noticed I wasn't replying. I still wished them happy birthdays, but my messages were the kind that floated into silence. Months passed. One day, I got a voicemail from my mom. Hey, sweetie, your sister's birthday is next weekend. We're planning a little get-together here. It had been 7 months since I'd last set foot in my parents' house. 7 months since I looked at Madison without hearing the words "you'll bounce back" echoing in my head like a curse I didn't tell anyone where I was moving. I found a tiny studio apartment near the waterfront, one that smelled faintly of salt and old plaster. It wasn't much. No dishwasher, and the heater rattled when it kicked in, but it was mine, paid for by me, furnished with pieces I found on Craigslist and thrift stores. Each one a small rebellion against everything I'd lost. I spent most of my evenings working freelancing for a local design firm during the day, bartending 4 nights a week. My fingers ached and my eyes burned, but the silence in that small space healed me in ways my family never had. One evening, as I was locking up the bar, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Alyssa. It's Mom. Madison's engagement party is next month. She wants the whole family there. Please come. There was no, I'm sorry, no mention of the money. Just an expectation that I would show up. Smile, clap, pretend everything was fine. I didn't reply. 2 days later, my dad called. I let it go to voicemail. He sounded tired, but not sorry. It's important to your sister. She's been through a lot. Don't hold a grudge forever. Forever, they called it a grudge, I called it a scar, when I wore in silence. Still, I couldn't stop the part of me that missed what I thought we had. The Sunday dinners, Dad humming while fixing the porch light, Mom making too sweet lemonade. There were times I'd catch myself walking toward the old house, keys in hand, before reminding myself I didn't belong there anymore. But something kept pulling me back. On the day of Madison's engagement party, I didn't go. I went to the beach instead, wrapped in a scarf, sipping coffee, watching the tide pull everything back to where it came from. I didn't cry. I didn't feel triumph either. Just stillness. That evening, I opened my email and found a message from a woman named Erin Matthews, a client I had done design work for the previous fall. Hi, Alyssa. We're launching a boutique real estate firm next quarter and need someone with your eye. Would you be open to discussing a consultant role part-time at first, but we can grow? Your work was unforgettable. Unforgettable. That word landed differently. I stared at it for a long time before replying. Within 6 weeks, I had a business card. Within 6 months, I had clients. Within a year, I had a waiting list. Turns out, people liked working with someone who listened, who didn't need to talk over them or sell them dreams. Just someone who knew how to find quiet, steady beauty in the places others overlooked. I reinvested every dollar bought into a pre-construction building downtown. Then another, I partnered with developers. I learned contracts, taxes, equity. All the things my parents once warned were too complicated. They never asked how I was doing, and I never offered. Until one morning, I received a thick cream-colored envelope in the mail. No return address inside an invitation to a family reunion. Location. An estate just outside Woodinville. Date. 2 years to the day since they took my savings. There was a handwritten note on the back. Hope you'll come. Everyone's missed you, Madison. I sat at my table, a cup of black coffee in one hand, the invitation in the other, and for the first time in years, I felt nothing. No anger. No ache. No need to go. But I did not for them. For me, because I had something they didn't know, I wasn't the girl they betrayed anymore. The day of the reunion arrived beneath a pale, cloudless sky. That kind of deceptive Seattle brightness that makes you think it'll be warm until the breeze cuts through your sleeves and makes your skin ache. I wore navy slacks, a soft cream blouse, and a long tan coat. Nothing extravagant, understated, clean, deliberate. I pulled my hair back in a low twist. No makeup, but a swipe of lip balm. When I looked at myself in the mirror before leaving, I didn't feel like someone arriving to prove anything. I just looked like someone who had let go. The estate was larger than I expected. Rented, obviously not ours. I could tell by the foldable chairs on the lawn and the way the catering team moved with rehearsed politeness. The house had ivy growing up its brick walls and tall glass doors leading out to the patio where most of the guests mingled. I arrived 10 minutes late on purpose. No one saw me at first. They were too busy clinking glasses, balancing charcuterie plates, complimenting Madison on her engagement ring. She floated around in white silk, her laugh like wind chimes, light, airy, untethered. My parents sat on the patio steps, sipping wine, watching her like she was some celestial being sent down just for them. I walked slowly, carefully across the lawn. I didn't have to say a word. I saw it in the ripple of heads turning. First one, then another, then a soft hush as someone whispered my name. Alyssa. Madison turned, her smile faltered for half a second. Just a flash, but it was there. Then Mom stood up, Alyssa. Honey, you came. She hugged me like I hadn't gone no contact for 2 years, like she hadn't ignored my calls, like she hadn't helped steal from me with the gentlest hands. Can I get you a drink? She asked already, motioning for a waiter. No, thank you, I replied. Calm, even Dad stood next. His hug was stiff. You look well, I am, I said simply. Madison approached last, still holding her wine glass, still gleaming. Her fiancé, some square-jawed man in finance I'd never met, stood beside her clearly, unaware of the past beneath the surface. I wasn't sure you'd come, Madison said. Voice syrupy. I looked her dead in the eyes. Neither was I. She didn't have a response for that. We made polite conversation. I asked about her job. She was between roles. I asked about the car she had sold it after 3 accidents and some unpaid tickets. I nodded, offering no judgment. No smile. Later, I stepped aside for a moment, letting the party buzz without me. I found a quiet spot near the side garden shaded by rose bushes and a narrow bench. I stood there breathing in the cool air when I heard a voice behind me. Excuse me, Miss Carter. I turned. A young man, mid-20s, dressed in a sharp blazer and holding a small leather folder, approached me with a respectful smile. I didn't expect to see you here, he said, lowering his voice. We met last month at the Ashford Project. I'm Andrew from Halston Realty. I nodded once. Of course, good to see you again. He hesitated, glanced around, then asked, Are you here to review the estate? I didn't realize this was one of your client's listings. I held his gaze for a beat, just long enough. No, I said softly. I'm here for family. His eyes widened slightly. Oh, of course, my apologies, ma'am. He excused himself quickly, but not before several heads turned. Whispers began to bloom like smoke. The word estate carried itself too clearly across wine and small talk. Madison approached me again later. Her voice was low. What was that about you buying property now or something? I looked at her, not past her. Not through her, but at her. For the first time in years, I manage multiple investments. It's my job now. Her mouth twitched. Seriously, I said nothing. I didn't need to. My silence did more than her 1,000 rehearsed smiles ever could. As the evening wore on, I didn't linger with anyone. I moved through the crowd like misnoticed but untouchable. Every now and then, someone would try to pull me into light conversation, but their voices would shift when they realized I wasn't the same girl they remembered. When my name was called from the microphone, some distant cousin insisting I say something, I almost shook my head. But something inside me shifted. Not a need to prove anything, just the need to breathe out loud for once. I stepped forward slowly. The microphone was still warm in my hand. I looked out over the faces I once called home. Some familiar, some blurred by time and silence. Madison stood just behind me, and Mom sat with both hands wrapped tightly around a glass of Chardonnay. Dad had crossed his arms. I didn't speak for a moment. The silence thickened. Then I exhaled. I don't have a speech. I said quietly because I wasn't really part of this gathering until a few weeks ago. No one laughed. No one clapped. I'm not here to stir anything. I came because I needed to see all of you. One more time, not to fix anything, just to witness what is and what is no longer. My voice didn't shake. Not once. I think it's easy to forget the value of certain things. Time, trust, effort. They're invisible, so we spend them without thinking. We assume there will always be more. I paused, letting the words settle. Years ago, I saved for something that mattered deeply to me. I worked through birthdays, weekends, holidays. I did it quietly without asking for help. That money wasn't just numbers in a bank account. It was years of sacrifice. Of saying no to myself so that one day I could say yes to a dream. I let my gaze drift briefly to Madison. But sometimes people take what isn't theirs because they think the one they're taking it from will forgive them, or forget, or simply absorb the cost like they always have. There was no blame in my tone, just air, just fact. And I did. I moved on. I built something else, not out of anger, but because I knew I had to find a version of myself that didn't live in the shadow of someone else's comfort. I turned toward the crowd, toward my parents. You called me strong, I said to my father. And you were right, but not in the way you meant. I'm not strong because I bounce back. I'm strong because I learned how to leave what doesn't love me back. The microphone clicked softly as I turned it off. I didn't wait for applause. There wasn't any, only the wind and the sound of a plastic cup tipping over near the table behind me. I walked back toward the garden the way I had come. No one followed, except for Madison Alyssa. She called once. I stopped. Slowly turned. I didn't know it meant that much to you, she said. The words hung in the air like wilted flowers. I looked at her. Not with hate, not with pity, just clarity. You didn't want to know, I replied. There's a difference. She looked down at her heels, then back at me. I don't know how to fix this. You can't, I said softly. But you can learn from it. Then I turned and walked away. I didn't stay for cake. I didn't wait for photos or hugs or one last round of false laughter. I left the estate the same way I came in, alone, unbothered and whole. The next morning, I woke up to 3 unread messages. One was from my father. We didn't realize you still felt that way. Maybe you should have said something earlier. The second was from my mother. I wish you hadn't said those things in front of everyone. That wasn't fair to your sister. You embarrassed her. And the third, Madison. Thanks for ruining my party. Again, everything has to be about you. I stared at the messages one after the other. Then I put the phone down and poured my coffee. I didn't respond. What was left to say? They hadn't heard me at all, only the echo of their own discomfort. But something had changed. Not in them, in me. Before, I would have written drafts of responses. Calmed myself down, tried to explain, to fix. But now I understood that silence didn't mean defeat. Sometimes silence was the only boundary that worked. Over the weeks that followed, little things began to reach me, subtle shifts from the outside in. A cousin messaged me privately to say she'd had no idea what happened with the money, that she always admired how I held myself. An aunt forwarded me an email from Madison's fiancé, who was suddenly reevaluating some things about the wedding. I didn't care to know the details. The car Madison bought with my house fund had long since been traded in. I heard through someone else that she owed back taxes, that she'd lost her temp job, that the wedding was postponed without explanation. The people who once told me to be quiet were unraveling in their own noise. And I was still working, still walking forward, still sipping my coffee in the soft light of my own kitchen. There was no dramatic apology, no handwritten letter, just a slow, steady unraveling of a narrative that had never been true. They used to call me the quiet one. Now they call me the distant one, but I call it peace. It came in small ways, in the way my phone no longer lit up with guilt-tripped invitations, in the way clients recommended me not just for my work, but for my presence, how I made them feel heard, in the way I could walk into a room and know I owed no one an explanation. One Saturday afternoon, I walked past a real estate office on Main Street and saw my name on the glass. Alyssa Carter, property strategist. It wasn't a mansion, just a modest space with light oak furniture and a small potted fern near the window. But it was mine. Everything in that room had been built on what they tried to take from me. And that more than money, more than revenge, was the real inheritance. It was nearly a year after the reunion when I saw my mother again. Not planned, I was sitting outside a cafe near Pike Place, sipping an espresso, reviewing contracts for a client's new duplex project. It was spring, the kind of soft gray day Seattle wears so well with the sky like brushed steel and petals gathering in puddles. She walked past me before realizing, then stopped, backtracked. Hesitated Alyssa, she said, as if she wasn't sure I was real. I looked up from my folder, blinked once and met her eyes. She looked smaller than I remembered, a little more stooped. Maybe it was the light. Or maybe it was just easier to see her clearly now. I thought that was you. She said, trying to smile. I offered a small nod. Hi, Mom. She shifted her purse strap. Her hands were fidgeting, something they always did when she wasn't sure what to say. I've heard you've done well, she said, eyes flicking toward the folder beside me. Your name's on a few signs around the neighborhood. I gave her a quiet smile. Things have been good. She sat down without asking, just lowered herself slowly like the weight of it all had finally caught up. I think about you all the time, she said. Your father, too. We didn't handle it well, any of it. I didn't reply. We thought we were helping Madison. We thought you'd recover. Recover, that word again. Like I'd caught a cold. Like betrayal was something you bounced back from with a hot tea and a nap. I know, I said. Not bitter. Not cold, just honest. You always thought that. She looked down at her hands. I miss you, she whispered. I stirred my espresso. The clink of the spoon was the only sound between us for a while. I'm not angry anymore, I said softly. Her eyes lifted. But I'm also not the same person you remember. She nodded slowly. I can see that. We sat there for a few minutes more. No big reconciliation, no hugs or tears. Just a long pause between two people who once thought love meant endurance. When she left, she touched my shoulder gently, then disappeared into the crowd. Swallowed by the street, I watched the steam curl from my cup rising and fading. Back at home that night, I lit a candle by the window, the same kind I used to light when I first moved into my studio apartment, when I had nothing but chipped furniture and silence. But this silence was different now. It didn't ache. It wrapped around me like a warm coat. I brewed chamomile tea, took it out to the tiny balcony that overlooked the alley and a sliver of distant water. As I sat, a breeze lifted the curtain. A ray of gold slipped through the clouds, casting light across the room like forgiveness. I held the warm mug in both hands and let the moment wash over me. There were no big endings, no courtroom justice, no tearful reunions. Only this. A woman who once lost everything quietly and found herself even quieter. And that was enough.